This is Stu Epperson from the Truth Talk podcast, connecting current events, pop culture, and theology, and we're so grateful for you that you've chosen the Truth Podcast Network. It's about to start in just a few seconds. Enjoy it, and please share it around with all your friends. Thanks for listening, and thanks for choosing the Truth Podcast Network.
This is the Truth Network.
Welcome to If Not For God, stories of hopelessness that turn to hope. Here is your host, Mike Zwick.
If not for God today, I'm going to tell you, if not for God. As today's show, I think you're going to find very compelling, as we have Pastor Dana Coverstone with us. And for those of you who may not be familiar, he is the pastor you may have heard about that it had these prophetic dreams. They started out, I think, last December. He could tell you more about that than I, but I have seen the videos, and a lot of Christians are beginning to sit up and take notice about a lot of things as a result of these videos, and they've had millions of hits, and there's all sorts of fruit out there to be partaken of at this point in time. And Mike, you've had a chance to develop a bit of a relationship with Pastor Danny. I had him on here a couple weeks ago, and we're back for more. And today's show, you really want to start out with some scripture.
I do, and it's 2 Peter chapter 3, starting in verse 3. And it says, "Know this, first of all, that in the last days mockers will come with their mocking, following after their own lusts, and saying, 'Where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all continues, just as it was from the beginning of creation.' For when they maintain this, it escapes their notice that by the word of God the heavens existed long ago, and the earth was formed out of water and by water, through which the world at this time was destroyed, being flooded with water. But by his word, the present heavens and earth are being reserved for fire, kept for the day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. But do not let this one fact escape your notice, beloved, that with the Lord, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. The Lord is not slow about his promise, as some men count slowness, but is patient towards you, not wishing any to perish, but for all to come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up. Since all these things are to be destroyed in this way, what sort of people ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming day of God, because of which the heavens will be destroyed by burning, and the elements will melt with intense heat? But according to his promise, we are looking for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells." And Pastor Dana, you said you actually preached a sermon on this Sunday.
Yes, I do expository preaching. I preach through an entire book at a time. And it just so happened that this past Sunday, just yesterday, was Where Are the Mockers was the name of it. And I preached from 2 Peter chapter 3, the very passage you just read through, and tried my best to expound upon it. And so this interview becomes very timely even in regards to that. So once again, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one of the things that we were talking about as I was walking in the show, I was actually having a conversation with my mother, and I said, Mom, I've had some dreams, and a lot of people that I'm talking to are saying that we could be headed in for some really hard times in this country. And one of the things that kind of reminded me of that verse before I came in, and I didn't know that you preached on that, but that verse just came to my mind. So to me, that's a God wink, as we call it. But
Right.
my mom said, Mike, she said, ever since I was a kid, she said it was, the things were happening in the 60s. They were worried about the bomb, and people have always been saying it's the end of the world and Jesus is coming back and stuff like that. And it's almost like she's not bothered by it. And I understand in a certain way. And I think, she said people have said in the past, hey, Jesus is coming back May 16th. I mean, I think you heard that a few years ago, or,
Yeah.
and so there is a lot of, I think, distraction, and there have been a lot of false prophets. But at the same time, when you look at 2 Peter chapter 3, it says, always be ready. But what do you think?
Well, I think that there's a lot of people who are hoping it doesn't get bad. There's a lot of people who are hoping the bad stuff doesn't hit their city. You know, Kenosha exploded this week. And some video footage was just released this morning about the guy that got shot fighting with the police before he was shot. And I don't know if that's been released or not. We have Portland, we have Seattle, we have Chicago, we have New York crime. You know, things are just going crazy. But I think sometimes, and looking at this passage in 2 Peter, I think there are some people who really say, well, you know what, Lord isn't coming back. I don't have to really get myself ready. I don't have to be as on top of things as I should be. And I believe we're seeing a lot of believers are using it as an excuse to really walk away from righteousness, because at the end of that passage, Peter is basically saying, look, what sort of people should we be? How should we live? What kind of Christian examples should we have in the watching world? There are things happening around us because we're seeing things like we've never seen before. Habakkuk chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, he kind of gives, God speaks to the prophet. He basically says to Habakkuk, you're about to see things that are going to shock you. Verse 5 of Habakkuk chapter 1, you're going to see things that are going to shock you. So get ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we've been warned, we should be able to handle those things.
Yeah, in 2 Chronicles 7, 13 and 14, it says, if I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. And something that kind of came to me, Pastor Dana, was I noticed Christians kind of use that verse in 2 Chronicles 7:14 to say, to kind of point their fingers at the world. But I was looking at it this weekend, and what he's talking about is God's people. If God's people, which are called by my name, shall humble ourselves and pray and seek our face and seek his face and turn from our wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and I will forgive our sin and he will heal our land. Now, you actually, I think you said there was something about a dream that you had, it may have been August 10th, where you saw protection bubbles around Christians who were praying. Is that right?
Yeah, and it was as if, I mean, the enemy was coming against the people who were praying, and they were earnest and sincere in their hearts and their prayers and their thoughts. And God was bringing an element of protection around them, about them. And yeah, one of the questions I keep getting asked is, what of this that's coming can we change?
Okay.
I'm not sure what all we can change, but I believe what the verse you just read tells me that if God's people will do something, rise up and stand, that we can see some things change.
Pastor Dana, to jump in here a little bit.
And this is Robby Dillmore, the Christian car guy.
Yeah, I'll hopefully our listeners know. But, you know, the thing that, interestingly, I was looking at this weekend as well as you guys were looking at other things, but in Revelation, there's this beautiful little verse in chapter 3, verse 10. It says, because you have kept the word of my patience, I will also keep you from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Now, that word patience, if you look into the Septuagint and dig deeply, you're going to find there's a Hebrew word that actually equates to, and it's the same word that Isaiah used when he said that those who wait upon the Lord will rise up with wings like eagles, which is fascinating that you put those two together. But that word is kava, and that word means literally, it's the same word that God used when he created the earth to gather the waters together. So to wait on the Lord in this patient endurance that Jesus is talking about, and by the way, Jesus himself spoke on this word in Luke, where he talked about that if you can patiently endure, in other words, your hope is what Isaiah is talking about, and it's also what he's talking about here in Revelation, is you're waiting on the Lord. He is coming, but in the meantime, right? I love the idea of what you said, Mike, that if we're praying and we're staying in close connection to him, what would you have me do right this minute? You know, Lord, you know, at this time, the friends of Jesus, there's no better time to get closer, because we can see by the signs of the times that there's a whole lot of things going on. And so there's never been a time, like Pastor, you talked about, that our light needs to shine brighter, but that light this light that we're talking about here, because the base, the root word of hope in Hebrew is kava, because takava, which means true, gathering, is this idea of the rope that you would hold on this piece of faith. And so as we twist into God, right, then our hope shines bright in the midst of all this darkness. And the way to do that, as you said, Mike, is through prayer.
Is through prayer. And what you said, you're right, Robby, and I think you said this as well, Dana, is that, while everybody's going around and worried, think about it. If we're shining bright, kind of what you're saying, Robby, and if we're shining bright and we're not worried because we've got a hope that nobody else has, well, Pastor Dana, what do you think that tells other people?
Oh, it says a lot. And even that word in Revelation 3:10 doesn't just mean tribulation, it means trial as well. And when you think about a trial, in our day and age, you go before a court, you go before a jury, and then you have to wait for that verdict to come back. And that's where that idea of patience comes from. You're waiting to hear what's going to happen next, what's going to go on. It's in that moment where you're saying, okay, Lord, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I know you hold it. I trust you. So I'm just going to help. I'm just going to trust you, Lord, to get me through this. And for right now, with the changes that we see in our country, both politically, at the government level, and so many different cities dealing with distress and strife, we are seeing suicide spikes. In the newspapers, we're seeing depression spikes. We're seeing abuse, mental, physical, sexual abuse is increased in our country, and a lot because of the COVID shutdowns. And one of the things that I think too, if you look back in the spring, here in Kentucky, the first places that were asked to shut down were not restaurants or businesses. The first places asked to shut down were churches. And I find that significant because it was almost like they were saying, we don't want the church to be out there still preaching, still teaching, still doing things, giving any hope. And I can see that as kind of the enemy's plan. But and now we're seeing churches that are standing up to governors and saying, we're going to meet and there's nothing you can do. And we see churches being sued and pastors being given letters of, you need to cease and desist and stop. Baltimore County had a pastor who got a letter from the council basically saying, you're hereby ordered to cease and desist, stop having church, and which is a violation of our First Amendment rights and our constitutional rights. But it's almost as if somebody was purposely trying to make sure that we did not have a voice, because conservative voices, most of the conservative voices in America are coming from conservative Christians. And that voice is what's being tried to be, shut down, shuttered, silenced. And that's why we in the church have got to continue to speak up, speak out, stand up, stand out, and not be afraid to say, folks, look, there is hope out there. Jesus is still on the throne, and we've got some opportunities. But also, with what's happening in our world today, the church has a great opportunity, not just to be a light and salt, but to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, and so go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, and we have to make a difference. And real quickly, I've got something because I feel like, kind of like my mom or people who were saying, oh, people have always said this. Another verse that actually came to my mind was 1 Thessalonians 5, starting in verse 1. It says, now as to the times and to the epochs, brethren, you have no need of anything to be written to you, for you yourselves know full well that the day of the Lord will come just like a thief in the night. While they are saying peace and safety, then destruction will come upon them suddenly like labor pains upon a woman with child, and they will not escape. Interestingly enough, while I'm looking at that verse, one of the things that comes to my mind, the American economy a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, might have been the best economy that we've ever had. And then, bam, all of a sudden, it just comes in. And when that happened, Pastor Dana and Robby, and I think, Robby, you want to say something real quick, but when that happened, something came to me, and that verse really came to my mind, and it's like, man, let's not get too comfortable here. We always have to be ready. We always have to be praying. But you said something, and Robby, I'm going to let you say it, but you said something, Pastor Dana, about the month of September, about how we need to pray. And 1 second, Robby, go ahead.
Oh, that's actually where I was going, Mike. What his call to prayer this and people, because yeah, this election's critical.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. No matter what your view of the times, you clearly, God is very, very much at work right this very minute. And I love the concept of us joining in prayer, because as we get closer to Jesus, I'm pretty sure he's going to, like you said, Pastor, give more of us dreams, more of us understanding of what our next step is in this that's going on.
Now, what can you tell us, Pastor Dana? You said you felt like there was a call to prayer for the month of September.
The dream that I had, I was standing on a month of September calendar, and God told me to pray for three specific things. First of all, for a stronger backbone in the church.
Okay.
Secondly, that corruption in the church would be exposed. And third, that we would have a great harvest. And the primary thing I began to realize in the dream was, unless we deal with corruption in the church, and there's a lot of hypocrisy and things in the pulpit, that the world's going to have more right to say, what's wrong with you? And Jesus said, by the fruits you'll know them. So he gave the world the right to judge us. So we're going to see a great harvest. We got to deal with the sin issues that we have, from the pulpit to the boardroom to the pew. But as I was praying on the month of September, God told me, you're not enough. You need to get some help. So I began to yell for other pastors and friends to come, and so people began to come, and the calendar underneath my feet began to grow, and it took on the contours of the United States of America. And I could see all this white space as I'm standing on, a calendar with the black lines and the black numbers, but there's a lot of white space. But I see people coming, and they're praying with me, and so we began to pray, and there were people praying out loud, people praying quietly, people praying in tongues, people praying in English, people, and I saw black, white, I saw men, I saw women, I saw children, I saw older folks, and we're praying, and the Lord speaks to us then, not just me. He says to you guys, you're not enough. We need more. Call the nation to prayer. And so we begin to, everybody on the calendar is yelling for people, hey, come and pray, come and pray. We're trying to get people's attentions. And so suddenly the calendar begins to fill up. And there's, it looks like ants everywhere, but the white space is disappearing. And I see I'm kind of lifted in the air, I look down, and I realize a finger appears, and it writes the words, A Solemn, in front of September. And then it writes the word assembly at the end of September. So I'm looking at the words, A Solemn September Assembly. Then it's like war breaks out. I'm seeing war in the heaven. I'm seeing battles on the earth. I'm seeing believers who are being pummeled as we're praying. I'm seeing all sorts of crazy things. I'm seeing bruises appearing in believers. I'm seeing people who are standing, and the next thing you know, they're flat on their face because there's an attack going on. There's spiritual warfare going on in the prayer event that's happening. And we're helping each other up. We're praying. There's angelic, demonic warfare going on around us. I saw fires. I saw storms all over America. I saw the fires of revival, but I also saw the fires of opposition and persecution coming against the church. And it just continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And finally, towards the end of the month, and I was literally standing on Tuesday, September 1st. And I had not really looked ahead of the calendar when I had the dream. And the first thing I did was open my phone and check the calendar, and Tuesday was September 1st. Or September 1st was on a Tuesday. I was somewhere in the area of like Idaho, where I was standing on the calendar in the dream. Yeah. But towards the end of the dream, basically the clouds began to lift. I realized we prayed all the way through the month of September, and people are standing up. We're helping each other up, and everybody looks like they've been through like a storm. I mean, there are people who have been sweating because they've been praying. People who are bruised, people are helping each other up. They're giving each other hugs and high fives, that sort of thing. And then the heavens opened in this dream, and I saw Jesus and the angels around him, and he said, "Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, and prepare to pray." That line there was prepare to pray. It wasn't get ready to pray. It was prepare to pray. In other words, get ready for a more aggressive prayer than you've ever prayed before. Okay. Secondly, he said, "Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, and prepare for battle." Okay. So in the sense of the dream, I realized that there's some strong opposition or something that's coming. Persecution in the church is coming in September. And the last thing he said was, "Arise, my bride, arise, my bride, arise, my bride, and prepare to see my face, for I am coming. My reward is with me." And then in that dream, there was this sound, and I'm a bald guy. I shave my head every morning, but in this dream, I could feel there was like 1,000 shofars went off. And I could actually feel the wind in the dream just going over my face. And that's when I woke up. and I had a very, very peaceful feeling. And since I've shared that dream, I'm going to be in the Dallas, Texas area on September 19th, 20th. I'm going to be doing a 48-hour prayer and fasting event for the nation.
Mm-hmm.
I just spoke with someone in South Carolina yesterday about some strategic prayer in South Carolina for that state. I'm hearing from other churches and other states that are doing, they're going to be praying every night or every day in September for the month. I've put out a prayer guide of things to pray for every single day along the main three things for the backbone for the church, for the corruption to be exposed in the church, and for the great harvest. And the thing I'm getting the most hit back on is people are saying, well, do we really want to pray out loud for pastors to be exposed or for sin? Look, if we've got sin in our lives, it keeps us from being effective.
Right.
I've had people who tell me, well, they're offended by the fact that I think we should pray for those things to be exposed. But on top of that, I've had a lot of phone calls and emails just in this last couple of weeks from pastors who struggle with lust, who struggle with pornography, and they're saying, what do we do? And I'm saying, be accountable. Find someone you can share that with. Find someone who will pray with you. Because one of the dreams that I had recently was I thought I saw like demonic sleeper cells being released, and there was going to be a spirit of lust and pornography that was going to hit ministers, Christian men, leaders of organizations, and already we have one religious leader from a university who's in the news this week, over some things that have come up. I'm hearing from other fellowships and denominations where they're seeing pastors that are being exposed. And God would much rather than go to someone and say, look, brother, I'm struggling with this. Will you pray for me? Help me to be accountable. God would rather have that happen than to have the rug pulled out. Everywhere I've been in ministry, I have followed moral failures. I followed a youth pastor at my home church who had a moral failure. There were several pastors at the church I went to in Indiana before I came here. I came to Brooksville. I followed a pastor who had a moral failure. So when I got to those churches, they had basically been gutted. They're in triage. People have left. People have taken their money. There's no confidence in the pulpit. People look at you like, yeah, when are you going to fail us? I mean, I know what it does to the community, what it does to the church, what it does to the faith of people, and it guts the church. And so I've got a very, 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 very deep, special place in my heart for churches that have had moral failures, because I've pastored 3 of them and done my best to stay there and be faithful and help them get back on their feet and continue to be a church. But those things that are happening out there in the church world, if we can address them and deal with them the right way, we can see our pastors restored to ministry. We can see marriages restored to ministry. We can see, but there's a lot of husbands that are struggling with pornography, with lust. They never told anybody. And in James chapter 5, the Bible talks about in the context that if anyone among you is sick, and let them come, and first the prayer of the faith will raise the sick. It also says in there to confess your sins one to another. And that's one thing we do not do in the American church, because we want people to think that we're strong and good and righteous and holy, but yet that's where we're lacking. And if the Lord's showing us that the enemy's going to start coming and attacking our minds as Christian men and pastors, we've got to get on top of that. Tonight at 5 o'clock, about 5 or 6 guys will show up at my church, and we'll go in the secret place right next to my office, and we'll spend an hour and a half praying. We'll pray as a group. We'll pray for one another, and I'll ask those guys, how can we pray for you this week? And we're men that are accountable to one another. And I know that those guys are praying for me every single day during the week about what I shared I need a prayer with, and I can let them know, hey man, I'm being tempted by some things, or I'm really frustrated. I'm struggling with pride this week, or I got that church member I just want to strangle right now because of what's going on in their lives, and they won't listen. I'm just being honest and as human as possible, transparent as possible. But we need to address the sin issues in the church, because God's looking for a bride without spot or wrinkle. Yeah, and that's us.
That's the beauty of prayer in community. As the heat gets turned on a little bit more, and people begin to pray together in their communities. Like you have your band of brothers there, Pastor, and actually my band of brothers meets tonight. And I know a lot of those guys share along the very lines that we talked about, including myself, when I'm struggling. And, it's kind of a cool thing. I really, really, Mike, wonder how we can get behind right? In North Carolina, I can think of Andy Bowersox and several people about having a prayer event here. Because, I mean, for such a time as this.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only, and if you may be listening, you may say, hey, well, I don't have a prayer event that I can go to or whatever. Well, you can pray in your home. I mean, you can pray with your family, if nothing else. I mean, you can get together. But, I agree. I think that we all need to be praying. One other thing before we get going, you said you had a dream about an assassination attempt.
Well, I had a dream this last week, and I saw a situation where there were 3 shots fired at the president, but a Secret Service agent jumped in front of each one of them and took care of those things. This was I don't know if it was around the election time. It was during the month of November. But at the very end, he was back in the Beast, the car that they have him in, and I saw the Secret Service agents around and about the Beast, and they were facing out. The car was moving slowly, and they were moving with it. There was a circle of Secret Service agents around them. And the one thing I noticed for sure in the dream were 2 things. They were holding muskets, not traditional handguns or AR-15s, just traditional muskets.
Okay.
Kind of going back to our founding fathers, I guess. But they were also not wearing sunglasses. And, most Secret Service agents always have sunglasses when they're out.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like their eyes were open to some of the things coming against our president. And that's how I interpret it. That's just me. And that's just a dream that I just actually posted this morning. I've had 3 this week. I felt the need to wait on them. And today was the time to put them out there. When I dream, when God gives me the dreams, I get them in glimpses for a couple of days, and then it's almost like this download. And I can always tell when I'm supposed to do something with them or not. And I felt like I needed to wait. I shared that with a friend who does dream interpretation. And it's concerns. I don't want federal agents knocking on my door at 2 in the morning and saying, "Hey, talk to us." Because I've talked to some people in high places. And, I had the dream about the corn shortage, and I've had some interesting people in the financial realms in our country that have contacted me and wanted to ask questions and talk to me about things. And so I have spoken to some people, at the federal level. I know some other federal level people who are looking at the dreams that I've had. And so for that's kind of, I don't know if it's creepy or just kind of, oh boy, what's this mean now? Once again, like I told you, I'm a pastor who had a dream. I'm not a prophet. I'm not trying to do anything with this. And there's really been a moment when I've said, God, if you don't want to do another dream with me, I'm fine, because it has turned my life upside down. At times, for the good. I've led over 300 people to the Lord on my phone. They've called. Said, Pastor, what do I do? I'm scared. I'm terrified. I used to be in the church, used to serve the Lord, but now I've fallen away. Stay with people. I'm hearing about prayer events all over the nation. So that thoroughly, it just warms my heart. It excites me. I'm thrilled for that. But yet I also know it's brought a lot of attention to me and to my church, and some of my folks here. Just like we had quite a large number of people in our church this past Sunday, but there were more visitors from outside of our church than there were from inside the church. When the wake up potential is going to be over, and those that have slept through the alarm are going to hit it, and it's going to be too late. So my hope and my prayer is that people will, and not because I had a dream, but because others are too. I spoke to Pastor Larry Reed, a black pastor in Atlanta, Georgia, interviewed me. He told me on the air that, within the black community, they're seeing all sorts of people having dreams and visions going back to January. Spoke to 2 Hispanic pastors, one in California, one in Texas. Both of them told me that back to January, they're seeing Hispanic people are having dreams and visions like crazy. A Japanese American called me from San Francisco, California, and said, Pastor Dana, I want you to know that among the Oriental community here in my area, we are having dreams and visions. It seems to go back to January. Things just began to explode. And so if God is exploding dreams and visions in the black community, the Hispanic community, the white community, the Oriental community, he is trying to get our attention.
And I think one of the things
for sure is that, what I'm thinking is that when God sets his mind to get our attention, he will get it. And as the idea is, Mike, if not for God, right?
If not for God. And hey, this month, a call to prayer. So Pastor Dana, we got to wrap it up, but thank you so much for coming on the show again. And we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for listening to If Not For God with Mike Zwick. For more shows, subscribe on iTunes to If Not For God. For more information on Mike or to contact him, go to ifnotforgod.life.